and welcome to Football Game Plan's NFL All-32 show. I am Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook, on location this week. So we're doing a remote broadcast, and to help me get this broadcast going, I'm bringing in my good friend and excellent writer and analyst at The Athletic, Brandon Howard. Brandon, I appreciate you taking time.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, listen, man, we're going to talk football. It's NFL all throughout the show. We'll get started with tonight's game. Have a big one between the Carolina Panthers and Houston Texans. Then initially, when you look at this game, you expected to have Tyrod Taylor. You expected to have Deshaun Watson, and then you expected to have Tyrod Taylor, and now we're getting Sam Darnold and the 2-0 Panthers going up against the 1-1 Houston Texans. What are your initial thoughts of this game?
Yeah, man, it's going to be really, really tough for the Texans, and they're throwing in a rookie quarterback in there in a short week. It's really hard to fathom them having much success offensively. And also you have a Panther secondary who's playing pretty well right now. They're doing a good job of disguising coverages. And I feel like they're going to confuse the rookie a little bit there. So it's going to be really tough for them.
Yeah, you look at a guy like Sam Darnold, and he's off to a 2-0 start. And the debate is now whether or not he's was it the New York Jets situation, or is it the teams that he's playing, or is it a combination of both? Or even if you look at the weapons that are around him, what would you say is the reason why we're seeing such a different Sam Darnold so far this season?
Definitely. It's a combination of all of it, right? I've been around Adam Gase, covering the Dolphins, and I recognize that, maybe there was some issues there with what he was being asked to do, and them not necessarily taking care of a younger quarterback. I think that now he's in a situation where over there in Carolina, where he's got some good talent around him, and they're not asking too much of the quarterback. So I really think that it's a good kind of a partnership and marriage there. I think is really, really good for him, and a good spot for him. I think you can see a lot of success this year.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, man, because their team on paper looks good. They got a lot of speed at the receiver, good running back situation, good depth there. The offensive line should continue to get better as the season goes on. Young defense getting better. So is it safe to say, judging by, what we just talked about, you're taking the Panthers in this game, I assume?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely taking the Panthers. I just have a hard time seeing the Texans coming away with this one with no Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah, that's tough right there. I'm taking the Panthers as well. Had Tyrod been in the mix, we'd probably be talking about a 2-0 Texans team coming in battle of unbeaten. So, but these games have surprised us. They've surprised us, these primetime games. So hopefully we get a good game tonight. But we both like Carolina in this one. Next game we're going to talk about Indianapolis taking on Tennessee. Now, we're both former athletes. So right off the bat, I just have to ask you, have you ever sprained both of your ankles in one game?
Yeah, man, I never once, man. It's hard to fathom, coming out of the game, laying there on the turf and thinking, both of my ankles, telling the trainer, both of my ankles are messed up. Like, that's crazy. I've never seen that, man. That's wild.
And we're talking about Carson Wentz, and it's interesting when you think about him going back in that game or finishing that game out. Then Eason came in, but it makes this game against Tennessee a very intriguing one, because whether he's going to play or not going to play, you look at what that means for that position. He hadn't been playing well from the get-go, and so now you toss in an ineffective and possibly injured Carson Wentz, or a Jacob Eason that is ineffective and not as good as Wentz. I think it's just a recipe for disaster. Do you tell me how Indianapolis can win this game against Tennessee, who's coming off a really good win against Seattle?
Man, I really think the only way, is that you control the clock and try to keep Tennessee off the field. Because if you let Tennessee on the field, then they're going to do the same thing to you with the ball control with Derrick Henry, and it's going to be hard to get them off the field. I don't really think that their defense necessarily stacks up well against the Titans' run game. So I really feel like the only way you could do it is kind of beat them at their own game and try to control the clock. Other than that, I really don't see a way for the Colts to get this victory. It's going to be incredibly difficult, especially if Carson Wentz, who, like you said, wasn't necessarily playing that great to begin with, is out of this game.
Yeah, it's going to be it's hard to fathom. It will have to be run game defense, but that Colts defense hadn't been playing well. Wentz hadn't been playing well, and so that puts a lot of pressure on Jonathan Taylor. So I'm with you, man. I think Tennessee can if they just stay the course and not get too caught up in, hey, we're looking past this team, they'll easily cruise to victory in this one. Stranger things have happened, but I just don't see it. Moving on to Buffalo. Now we got Buffalo taking on Washington, and this is an intriguing matchup because you have Josh Allen and the Bills coming off a 35-0 beatdown of the Miami Dolphins. Granted, the Dolphins lost Tua early in that game, so it explains away. But the intriguing matchup here is that Bills offensive line against that Washington defensive front. We saw Josh Allen not be as effective so far this year, dealing with pressure, seeing a lot of pressure in his face with that offensive line. It's surprising to me. But when you see Washington, heading up to Buffalo to take on the Bills, what are some of your key thoughts for this matchup?
Yeah, I think the world of that Washington football team defensive front. I really think they can get after it. They're going to have a hard time kind of blocking that up, with Chase Young up there. It's going to be very difficult for them to block that up. As far as, with Josh Allen, he's going to have to really, really hit those layups, as you touched on earlier. He's going to have to get back to hitting those shots that we saw him routinely hit last year. So far this year, he's been a little bit more sporadic. I think that in that Dolphins game, we saw him kind of get back to basics a little bit. We saw him from a technical perspective. I think he kind of got back to it, really throwing from the lower body up, and like they say, we throw with our feet, right? And that's kind of what you saw him do and get back to in that game. So I think we're going to see the Bills go ahead and take this one. I got it by about 28-17.
Okay, I'm on the other side here. I think I like Washington to win this one. I think the defense will force at least 2 turnovers in this game, and I think we'll get like a 2017 type game. So we'll see. We'll split on that one. We'll step aside and get back to some more game previews here on Football Game Plans, NFL All-32 show. And welcome back to Football Game Plans NFL All-32 show. Emery Hunter Czar, the playbook here with Brandon Howard, doing a remote show, different than what we're normally doing, but we're making it work. Follow Brandon Howard at @BHoward_81. He does great work for The Athletic. Go check out his latest article, giving you the news, notes, and tidbits on fantasy football and all kind of other tidbits about the game that you can only get from Brandon Howard. So, Brandon, Justin Fields making his first start this week against the Cleveland Browns. It's on the road, but it should be fun nonetheless. First of all, what's your thoughts on Justin Fields and him getting this start, albeit because Andy Dalton is injured and not going to be able to play? But what are your thoughts on Fields getting this start here against the Browns?
I love it, man. I love it. I love that he's finally going to get a chance to get out there and showcase what he can do. I think that it's a kind of a marriage made in heaven with that offensive line that's really not that great, but you got a quarterback who can scramble, kind of make things happen, on the run and go ahead and make those plays that we've seen him make routinely at Ohio State. So I think this is perfect. This is kind of my upset special, so to speak. So I really think that the Bears are going to come away with this one because I think that those skill position players, this is something that they've been asking for since the beginning of training camp. They wanted Justin Fields to be their guy. They wanted him to go out there and be special right now. But the coaching staff, they kind of had their own thoughts. I really think that, they're going to go ahead and play their butts off. Not that they wouldn't anyway, but I think that there's just something extra special about Justin Fields. And I think that they're going to kind of raise their level of play to make sure that they get what they want moving forward. And that's for Justin Fields to be the starting quarterback for that team.
I feel like we saw this game already, right? Last week with Tyrod Taylor and the Houston Texans, and giving that Browns defense trouble with him being able to extend plays and connect on some key plays in the passing game.
Exactly.
And when you look at Cleveland, I feel like this is the matchup that, where the old Browns would lose, right? Where, this is a team maybe on paper they should beat. I mean, let's say on paper they're starting a rookie quarterback. The offensive line isn't that great. They got 2 good pass rushers. Like everything sets up for Cleveland to win. But I hope to see the Browns team that wants to go far expect to win and take care of business. But I kind of am with you here. We saw this. I feel like we saw this game last week, and I also feel like we saw this game last year with Jalen Hurts starting against New Orleans, where nothing made sense for the Eagles to win that game. and
But
then
they
they
did.
go out and win. So I'm with you here. I think this is going to be a fantastic matchup on Sunday. So now going from one rookie quarterback to a second-year quarterback in Justin Herbert taking on Kansas City. Now this is a game. If you remember last year, he got the start, the notice 5
Right.
minutes before
the game. Right.
So crazy circumstances, and that game went down to the wire. So what's your initial thoughts on these two hitting the field once again?
Right. So I believe Mahomes has lost 2 consecutive games, something like only twice in his career thus far. And I don't count on this one being a third. So I really think that I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be about 24-20 affair, something about that around that range. But I do think the Chiefs come away with this one. It's just, I know that the Chargers defense is very multiple, right? They cause problems. They're tough, and they can match up with just about anybody because of the versatility on that defense. And they do a good job of, they may bend, but they don't break because of the versatility that they have. So I think it's going to be a close one. But, Patrick Mahomes and all that firepower, even if they decide to bracket Tyreek Hill and take him away just like the Ravens did, I feel like McCole Hardman's ready to step up, and you'll see Kelsey make some big plays. I think that they'll find a way to get it done.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. Even though I like the Chargers' defense, I think their defense is way better than Kansas City, and the Ravens feel that you could run on Kansas City, but the Chargers don't have anyone, I feel like, that threatens you in the run game. And they're going to try to make this be a Patrick Mahomes versus Justin Herbert game. And that's not the game you kind of want to play. You don't want to play that game if you're in Los Angeles. So I'm with you. I like Kansas City in this one. Now, here's a good one. You got Baltimore taking on Detroit. In Detroit, so you're going to be on that turf. And we got to talk about Lamar Jackson, man. It's like it's the never-ending story on fighting for respect. This young man has exceeded expectations everywhere he's been, every game he's played in, won MVP, all those good things that you want your franchise quarterback to do. Yet and still, there's still issues from the masses about his style of play. What do you say to the recent article that came out about these anonymous NFL decision makers saying they wouldn't pay Lamar Jackson?
It drives me absolutely nuts. It doesn't make any sense at all to me because if your franchise is winning football games and you get into the playoffs every single year, what's the problem? You got to pay that guy. He's the reason your team is winning. Don't talk about what he can't do or what you perceive him to not be able to do. Tell me what he can do and make it happen and go win some games. And that's what he's done. So, you have a coaching staff that recognizes his value. The teammates, I get a chance to talk to those guys, every now and then, a lot of them being from here in South Florida. They love him. Everybody rallies around him. They win because of him, not in spite of him. And there's always, you can tell the difference. And the locker room will tell you 100% of the time. So for anybody to say that they wouldn't pay him, I don't feel like it's genuine. And we got to stop it with these anonymous sources. I think that's a little bit crazy after a while. It's like, you know what? If nobody's going to reveal their name, I really just kind of don't want to hear it. And I feel like the Ravens in that locker room are absolutely on the same page.
Yeah, they're all in on Lamar Jackson. I feel like if some of these sport beat writers and sport writers should share some culpability. If someone comes anonymously and tells you that the sky is purple, you're just gonna run out and say, "Man, I heard from a source the sky is purple." No, you're gonna be like, I'm not gonna repeat that. So if you know something not to be true, you shouldn't go ahead on and repeat it unless you subconsciously wish it was true or you hope it's true.
There you go. That last part.
Exactly. And the thing about that, I'm glad they won the game the way they did last weekend, because otherwise we've been talking about the bad Lamar, right? Yeah. So I said all that to say this. I just don't see no chance for Detroit to win this game because it's going to come down to Jared Goff having to make plays. And we know what Jared Goff does versus pressure. Right. So I don't see them winning this game. How about you?
No, I definitely don't see any chance for them to win this game, in the sense that you've got, two real playmakers in Swift and Hockenson. Those are your two most dynamic players. And as long as you can keep Khalif Raymond in front of you, I really don't see any way for them to have any, chance to score points, routinely or score enough points to keep up with the Ravens in this one.
Yeah, this would be a break for the Ravens secondary after what they had to do the first 2 games of the season against the Raiders' speed and against the Chiefs' speed.
Tell me about it.
Doesn't have any speed on the perimeter that threatens you like that. So I will say this though, just before we go into break, Malik Willis would look good in that Honolulu blue and gray. Just saying.
Hey, that's a good thought right there. I love it.
We'll take another break and be back with more Football Game Plans NFL All-32 show. And welcome back to Football Game Plans NFL All-32 show. Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook, joined with Brandon Howard of The Athletic. Again, follow him on Twitter at @bhoward_81. Follow him on social media, everywhere he's at. And make sure you go and check out his articles on The Athletic, one of the best writers I know, and also one of the best football analysts I know as well. And that's why we bring him in here, so we can talk about some of these games. I know we're jumping around games, guys, but you got to bear with us. It's cool. We're giving you some insight on the games that we do talk about. And one game we're going to talk about now involves a rookie quarterback in Zach Wilson as his New York Jets travel to Mile High and take on the Denver Broncos. What are your initial thoughts on Zach Wilson so far this season? I know last week got out of hand, but what's your initial thoughts on Zach Wilson?
I think, it's really what his coach was saying in the post game. It's okay to play a boring game every now and then. You can take your check downs. Don't play scared, but you got to take what the defense gives you. Don't force anything. I think he's so anxious to showcase what he can do as far as his arm talent is concerned. I think that the game kind of gets away from him a little bit. So just for the time being, no reason to kind of force anything. Just go ahead and make the plays that are there.
Yeah, and it's funny because on the other side, you have a guy in Teddy Bridgewater who, has done all of that and does that, and you see the results of him playing with a team that's talented on offense. And they got a really good defense. It'll be without Bradley Chubb for a couple weeks, I believe. But you do have that level of efficiency in which they are trying to get Zach Wilson to achieve. So it's funny to watch the two different quarterbacks. So let's stay with Jets right quick. Personally, I just don't understand. You watch a guy like Michael Carter have success running the football every time he touches the ball with the offense.
Yet I think we're going to say the same thing.
Exactly. Please tell me, why is he not starting?
I couldn't tell you. I don't understand being a bad team and not using all your talent on your roster. Make it make sense to me. And Denzel Mims, he's clearly, one of the better receivers on your team. You don't want to use him. It's personal at this point. What are you doing? So I honestly don't understand the usage of the players. You're not going to win a ton of games, and you're not going to put your best players on the field. And your job, is on the line. As an NFL coach, I'm not saying his job, he's on the hot seat, but I'm just saying as an NFL coach, that's just the way it is. Your job is always on the line. So why wouldn't you put the best men out there to try to get you the dub every Sunday? It just doesn't make any sense to me.
All you're doing is wasting time, and who's the better player. And don't give me that job about, well, Denzel Mims only knows one position. Okay, cool. Put him at that one position. If these other guys know multiple, then move those guys around. Why are you trying to make this? You are wasting Denzel Mims' second year in the NFL to try to make a point. It doesn't make sense to me.
No, and I see, and what's sad about this to me is this is why a lot of teams stray away from making a defensive-minded head coach making them their head coach, because they don't necessarily relate well with a lot of offensive players, a lot of the times. And so, you hate to paint everybody with the same, broad brush, but sometimes it just turns out that way. And, you got to think about the others that come behind you, and you got to make the right decisions, especially as it pertains to the offense. And I hope he does that moving forward here.
Yeah, I hope so too, because I would hate to see, a team that has talent on paper go to waste. That's not what you're seeing in Denver. They're getting everybody that can play out there on the field on both sides of the ball, which is why I think they win this game easily.
Absolutely, and I can't say how excited I am for Teddy Bridgewater this year.
Yeah, he's going to do great things. He's already off to a 2-0 start and could have those guys in the playoffs. Speaking of the playoffs, we may see the Raiders in the playoffs this year. As they're off to a 2-0 start, beating the Ravens and beating the Pittsburgh Steelers. They've run through the AFC North right now. They faced the Miami Dolphins, the Jacoby Brissett-led Miami Dolphins. We just found out Tua Tagovailoa will miss a lot of time due to the fractured ribs that he suffered in that game against Buffalo. Talk to me about the Raiders. When you look at how they're doing and Derek Carr and how he's playing, what's your initial takeaways?
Man, I'm thoroughly impressed with him, and he's made quite the jump from last year to this year, and he's got such a handle on this offense. And you talk about a guy who's, making sure he's getting his team into the right play, every play, down in and down out. He's giving his team the best chance to succeed. He knows, who's coming, who's going as far as, the pass rush is concerned. And if he needs to, he's taking a super deep drop to make sure he's hitting those over routes and those deep patterns the way that he needs to buy himself some time. So the anticipation of knowing what's coming has kind of eliminated a lot of the fears that he, had in the pocket and being a little frenetic in the pocket, pitter patter in his feet, kind of playing a little scared, so to speak, right? But I feel like he's got so much more control now of the offense, and I feel like we're going to, we could come to expect some good things from this Raiders team, especially on the offensive side of football this year.
Now, I couldn't let you get out of here without not talking about your Dolphins that you know so well. You had an interesting tweet early in the day. I thought that was fascinating. The Dolphins trading a second-round pick for Ezekiel Elliott.
Right.
Explain your thought process in that and why that makes a lot of sense.
The reason it makes a lot of sense for me is because this is an offensive line that's struggling, and this is an offense that's struggling to get some consistency and some continuity, and in order to do that, especially in one shot, what I think that you could potentially do is get a player who a lot of coaches have said, even when he came out of the draft, was that he's one of the better players. Ezekiel Elliott is one of the better players that they've ever seen without the football. That's in terms of blocking, making sure he's getting out on his pass routes, on his patterns, running good routes, all of that. And I think that a guy who knows his assignment as far as being a pass blocker and pass protection, a guy who can be an outlet, as a receiver, I think that helps your quarterback a lot. And a guy who's consistent and can get you consistency in yards on running plays. I think that will go a long way towards helping the offensive line who has struggled in several facets. So if they're continually, blocking forward in the run block, in the run game, I think that will also help them at that offense to remain balanced as the season goes along. And so the defense can't just pin their ears back and go after the quarterback. So I think Ezekiel Elliott, if they could trade for a guy like that, that would help stabilize that offense and buy Tua of the time that he needs to get those completions and those short completions down the field.
Yeah, I completely agree with you with that sentiment. I think that's a fascinating trade that could potentially help set the Dolphins back on the right track. That's why we're both preaching for them to get a running back in the draft. But
Absolutely.
Do you see them winning this game against the Raiders?
No, it's not going to happen. You got a team that's trending down, and you got one team that's trending up. I don't see the Dolphins coming away with that one.
Yeah, I think the Raiders avoid the letdown and take care of business against the Dolphins playing in Las Vegas. Brandon, tell everybody where they can follow you on social media and what you have coming down the pike, your latest on The Athletic.
Yeah, so you can follow me at bhoward_81 on Twitter. And some of the things I'm working on is we're going to talk a little bit about, the playmaking back, the factor back, so to speak, guys that can give you some versatility, out there in the backfield and out there at wide receiver. And we're also going to get back into some quarterback play as well, and which players you can kind of bank on to make you some bank on fantasy. So look for that coming forward here.
Follow that man on Twitter, like he said, at bhoward_81. Subscribe to him on The Athletic as well. Check out his articles. I'm Emory Hunt, Starter Playbook. We appreciate you guys taking time for this abbreviated show, but love you guys nonetheless. Be sure to keep it locked here on Football Game Plan Network and also Game Plus. We'll see you guys next week.